Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, and this is actually a special edition for us, coming to you as part of the Funeral Channel Network podcast. We are really glad you're joining us today.
It's a great platform for this topic.
It really is. You know, usually when we start talking about design on this show,
Yeah.
the mind immediately goes to, well, the sexy stuff.
Right, the high-tech gadgets.
Exactly. We think about the aerodynamics of a Tesla, or the way a new iPhone feels in your hand. That perfect balance of glass and aluminum.
Or architecture.
Yes, architecture.
Yeah.
Like the way a museum gently guides you through a gallery space.
We tend to think of design as something meant to delight us. Or, to make us more efficient. We think of it as optimization.
Optimization, making things faster, sleeker, cooler. But today, we're going to pump the brakes a bit.
A hard stop.
Yeah. We are going to look at design in a context that is the absolute opposite of fast or cool. We are looking at design in the moments where we are the most broken.
The most vulnerable.
And honestly, the least capable of processing information. We are talking about design for grief. And specifically, we're going to do a deep dive into a piece of paper.
It sounds so mundane when you put it that way. A piece of paper.
It really does. But it's a piece of paper you have probably held in your hands, maybe with trembling fingers, and you never really stopped to analyze it as a piece of technology.
Which it is.
Today, we are unpacking the graduated funeral program.
Yeah.
And look, before you tune out thinking, oh, great, paper folding, boring.
Let me stop you right there, because it is anything but boring.
Exactly. Let me tell you, this is actually a masterclass in psychology, logistics, what I'm going to call emotional user experience.
Emotional user experience. I love that. That's actually a perfect term for this.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about the graduated funeral program, and we will define exactly what that physical object is in just a second, we aren't just talking about aesthetics. We aren't just talking about making something look pretty for a memorial service. We are talking about a tool. A tool that helps navigate a room full of people through a collective trauma.
That is a heavy lift for some cardstock.
It is a heavy lift, but that is the job it has to do.
So let's start at the very beginning. For the listener who might not know the industry jargon, or who maybe has only ever seen those standard bifold pamphlets.
The ones that just fold right down the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
What exactly are we talking about when we say graduated program? Because when I hear graduated, I'm thinking about a measuring cup or high school graduation.
Yeah, that's a super common association. But in the printing and design world, specifically in the context of what we see on resources like the funeral program site, graduated refers to the physical cut of the paper. It is about the layering.
Okay, walk us through the visualization of that.
So imagine you are holding a standard booklet.
Okay.
Usually, in a booklet, all the pages are the exact same size. You open the cover, and the pages inside are totally flush with the cover.
Right, a standard book format.
Exactly. You have to physically flip through them to see what is printed on them. A graduated program completely disrupts that. It uses a stepped effect.
Tab.
Yeah, the interior pages are cut at different widths, or sometimes heights, but usually widths, so that they are slightly shorter than the page beneath them.
Okay, so it's like, think of those old school address books.
Yes.
Or like a physical Rolodex file.
That's it. Or a file folder system in a cabinet. When the program is closed or when you open just the cover, you can see the right-hand edge of every single page inside sticking out just a little bit.
Ah, okay.
It creates a tier, a set of physical steps.
And on those little exposed steps, you usually have text, right?
Precisely. That is the key to the whole design. Those exposed edges act as tabs. You will literally see the words obituary, order service, tributes, music,
Just right there on the edge.
all visible at a single glance without ever turning a page.
It's a menu.
It is a menu. It's a navigation bar made of paper. And look, that might sound like a really small design choice, just cutting the paper a half-inch shorter, but it fundamentally changes how a person interacts with the object.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, it changes how they feel while they are holding it.
And that right there is our mission for this deep dive. We want to understand why families are increasingly choosing this specific format. I mean, it's more expensive, it's significantly harder to produce,
Oh, absolutely.
which we will definitely get into, and it requires a lot more design work. So why do it? Why not just print a single sheet, fold it in half, and call it a day?
It comes down to the user experience problem you hinted at earlier. We have to look at the user, the mourner, and understand what is actually happening in their brain during a funeral.
Let's jump right into that, section 1 of our deep dive, the psychology of structure. Why does this step actually matter? And I want to push back on this a little bit immediately.
Okay, go for it.
Are we really saying that people at a funeral need user interface design? I mean, isn't that a big clinical
It feels clinical until you have been the person sitting in the pew.
fair point?
Think about the last funeral you attended. What was your headspace like?
Foggy.
Yeah.
I remember feeling really detached, like I was watching a movie of myself. I was tired. I was worried about saying the wrong thing to the widow.
Right.
I was worried about whether I remembered to turn my phone on silent.
Exactly. You were experiencing what cognitive scientists call cognitive load. High cognitive load.
Hmm.
Your brain is processing grief, which takes up a massive amount of physical and mental energy. It is processing social anxiety. Who am I sitting next to? Do I look sad enough? Is that my cousin over there?
Yeah, all of that all at once.
Plus, it's processing the sensory environment, the smell of the lilies, the organ music playing, the temperature of the room.
So your bandwidth is completely full.
Your bandwidth is tapped out. Your working memory is completely shot. So if I hand you a dense, text-heavy document that requires you to hunt for information, you literally cannot do it.
Oh.
You will stare at the page and the words will just swim.
It's like trying to read a dense technical manual when you have a 102-degree flu.
Perfect analogy. You read the exact same sentence 3 times and it just doesn't stick. Now, apply that to a memorial service. The pastor stands up and says, "Please turn to the hymn on page 4.
Okay.
If you have a standard booklet, you have to fumble. You have to open it, find page numbers. If they even remember to print page numbers on the thing, flip past the obituary, flip past the photo collage.
And in that exact moment of fumbling, you feel panic. You think everyone else is already singing. I'm the idiot crinkling paper in the back row.
Exactly. It creates a micro moment of stress. And stress is the absolute last thing you need in that environment.
So how does the graduated program fix that?
It solves this by offloading the cognitive work to the paper itself. It acts as external memory.
External memory.
Yeah. You don't have to remember the structure of the service. You don't have to search for anything. You just look at the edge, you see the word hymn, you put your thumb on it, and you flip. One motion.
It gently guides the eye.
It steers you. It's like, the colored lines on the floor of a large hospital.
Oh, yeah. Follow the blue line to the cafeteria.
Right. You don't have to navigate by reading a complex map. You just follow the blue line to radiology. The graduated tabs are the blue line.
That's really interesting. So the structure isn't just about looking highly organized. It is actually about providing safety.
It's about reducing friction. In the tech world, UX designers talk about reducing clicks.
Right. Fewer clicks to buy something.
In the funeral world, we are reducing flips. By removing the need to search, you allow the person to physically and mentally settle.
And that changes the vibe of the room, doesn't it?
Drastically.
Yeah.
If you have 200 people all confused about where they are in the service, you get a restless energy.
Yeah. You hear the pages rustling.
You see people leaning over to their neighbors whispering, "Where are we? What did he say?" It breaks the solemnity. It breaks the communal connection.
But if everyone can navigate instantly,
The room stays quiet. The focus stays entirely on the eulogy. The focus stays on the memory of the deceased. The program becomes invisible in the best way possible. It works so seamlessly you don't even notice it's working.
it is organization as a form of comfort. I really like that framing. It's like when you are a kid and things are scary, having a strict routine makes you feel safe.
Yes.
This program is basically providing a physical routine for the next hour of your life.
It creates a container. Grief is messy, it's chaotic, it feels totally boundless. A graduated program with its neat descending lines and its clear labels, it says, there is an order here.
Wow.
It says, we have a plan, you are in good hands. It signals that someone is in control, which naturally allows the guest to let go of their own need for control and just feel.
That is a fascinating take on it. I hadn't thought about that chaos versus order dynamic at all.
It's profound when you see it in action.
Okay, so that is the psychology of why we do it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to section 2, the architecture of the program. Because this isn't just about finding the page, it's about what you can actually put on the page.
Right. This is what we call the real estate argument.
Because I feel like standard programs always run out of room. You get the front cover, which is usually the portrait. The back cover is a poem or maybe directions to this cemetery repast. So you are left with just the inside spread, literally 2 pages to sum up an entire human existence.
And that is a recipe for terrible design. Because what always happens, Families try to cram absolutely everything in.
Yes, the tiny fonts.
They use 8-point font. They shrink the family photos until they are the size of postage stamps. They cut the obituary down to just, he was born, he worked, he died.
It becomes a resume,
Yeah.
not a tribute.
Exactly. The graduated format is what the sources at the funeral program site call a content powerhouse.
The content powerhouse.
Because by adding those interior stepped pages, you are literally adding surface area, but more importantly, you're adding categorized surface area.
Break that down for us.
Yeah.
What does categorized surface area give us that just, say, a blank sheet of legal paper doesn't?
It gives each element of the person's life its own dedicated stage. Instead of the obituary awkwardly bleeding into the order of service, which then bleeds into a poem,
Right.
you have a dedicated page, a dedicated step just for the life tribute. You have another dedicated step just for family memories.
So you can actually write a long, meaningful obituary. You don't have to edit out that great story about how he met his wife just because you're worried about running out of room for the scripture reading.
Precisely. You can actually tell the story.
Yeah.
And we see families including things that would never, ever fit in a standard fold,
Yeah.
like song lyrics.
Oh, that's more.
Not just listing him, Amazing Grace,
Yeah.
but having the actual lyrics printed out on the page.
Which, going right back to our psychology point earlier, encourages participation.
Hmm.
If I don't know the words to the hymn, I'm not singing. I'm just standing there awkwardly.
Exactly.
But if the words are right there on the music tab, I might actually join in.
It also makes room for acknowledgments. This is a huge one in the industry. In a standard program, the acknowledgments thanking the pallbearers, the hospice nurses, the neighbors who brought over casseroles, that usually gets shoved into a tiny, unreadable corner on the back page.
Or cut entirely because there's just no room.
Or cut. But in a graduated program, it gets its own tab. It gets dignity. You can list the honorary pallbearers. You can list the flower ladies. It makes those people feel truly seen and appreciated for their help.
Let's talk about the visual hierarchy of all this content. How are these pages typically stacked? I'm assuming the cover is still the hero image.
The cover is the door you walk through. In a graduated setup, the cover is the full height or the full width of the booklet. It sets the visual tone.
Okay.
This is where you have the high-quality portrait, the full legal name, the sunrise and sunset dates,
And then you open it.
and you see the cascade. The interior pages are arranged in descending order. So page 1 might be 8 inches wide, page 2 is 8.5 inches wide, page 3 is 9 inches wide.
Right.
And those exposed half inches, that's where the magic happens. That's where the tabs sit.
One thing I noticed looking at the various templates on the funeral program site is that the design isn't just text. It's not just a stark white page with black letters. The background art actually flows across the steps.
Yes, that is the secret sauce of a truly good graduated design. It is called continuity.
Continuity.
If you just had a white page and then a blue page beneath it and then a red page.
It looked like a carnival ticket book.
Exactly. It would look cheap. It would look completely disjointed.
Right.
The professional designs use a cohesive background. Maybe it's a soft floral vine or a sunset gradient or a subtle geometric border. But it starts on the top page and visually continues down the steps.
Like a puzzle fitting together.
Yes. It ties all those separate layers together into a single, cohesive object.
It gives it that very specific book-like feel.
It adds dimension. A flat piece of paper is just two-dimensional. A graduated program, because of the actual shadows cast by the physical steps, feels three-dimensional. It feels substantial.
Artifact quality.
It feels like an artifact.
That word substantial is so key here. We naturally associate weight and complexity with value. If something is thick and layered, our brains automatically say, this is important.
Mm-hmm.
If something is flimsy and single ply, our brains say, this is disposable. Throw it away.
And you desperately want the memorial of a loved one to feel important. You want it to feel permanent.
Which leads us perfectly into section 3 of our deep dive. Sizing and scope.
Mm.
Because the word substantial can mean very different things physically.
Mm.
I actually didn't realize there were standardized sizes for this. I kind of thought you just cut the paper however you wanted.
You can, technically. But if you want it to be printable and relatively cost-effective, you really stick to the industry standards. The source material breaks down 3 main options that really cover about 90% of all use cases.
Let's run through them. Option 1, the standard letter size.
This is your workhorse.
Yeah.
Take a standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, what you literally have in your home printer right now. You fold it. You trim the pages to create the steps. The finished size, once folded, is roughly 5.5 by 8.5 inches.
So roughly the size of a standard paperback book.
Yeah.
or a typical church bulletin.
Exactly. It's very familiar. It easily fits in a purse. It fits in an inside suit pocket. It's comfortable to hold in one hand while you're standing at a graveside.
And I imagine it's the most economical.
It is because you are using widely available standard paper stock.
But sometimes, standard just isn't enough.
Sometimes you need the IMAX version.
An IMAX version, I love that.
That is option 2, the large or legal size.
Legal size is that extra long paper lawyers use, right? 8.5 by 14 inches.
Correct. When you fold that, or when you graduate that specific paper, you end up with a finished booklet that is roughly 8.5 by 11 inches.
Oh, wow. So the folded size is the size of a normal piece of paper.
Yes. It is the size of a full magazine or a high school yearbook.
That is a big program. That's a lap filler.
It absolutely is. But there are 2 main reasons people choose it. One is sheer volume of content.
Okay.
If you have a massive extended family or the person had a 50-year career with countless awards and military honors you want to list, you just need the physical space.
That makes sense.
But the second reason is the one people always forget until they're at the service: accessibility.
Accessibility.
Think about who typically goes to funerals. Often it's contemporaries of the deceased, older adults, people with failing eyesight.
Of course.
Or people of literally any age who are actively crying.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to read small font through tears?
It's basically impossible. Everything just blurs together.
It really does. Your visual acuity just plummets. So
Yeah.
the legal size format allows you to bump that font size way up. You can easily use 14-point font or even 16-point font.
And the photo.
You can make the photos large and crystal clear. It is a deeply empathetic design choice. You are making it easy for Grandma to read the scripture verse without having to dig around for her reading glasses in the middle of a very emotional service.
That is beautiful. I honestly hadn't thought about large print as a deliberate feature of funeral programs, but it makes total sense when you frame it around empathy.
It's crucial. And then you have option 3, the expanded format. This one isn't just about the paper size, it's about the page count.
Okay, so this is the director's cut.
This is where you take a standard size, either letter or legal, but you just keep adding steps. Instead of 4 interior pages, you have 8. Instead of 8, you have 12. You create a very thick, robust booklet.
When do you typically see this used?
This is really for that state funeral vibe, or for someone who was a massive pillar of their community. I have seen these used for beloved pastors, for local politicians, or for the matriarch of a huge family.
What goes on all those extra pages?
It allows for an extensive section called tributes, where you might have 10 different people writing a full paragraph about the deceased.
So it becomes less of a simple program and more of a collaborative memoir.
Exactly. It is a book, but, and here's the major warning, it gets technically very complicated very quickly.
How so? What's the catch?
Binding. If you have too many pages, a standard office stapler will simply not go through it. It will jam.
Oh, wait.
You need specialized saddle stitching equipment. And then there's the creep.
The creep. That sounds ominous.
It is ominous if you're a designer. Creep is the way the inner pages naturally push outward when you fold a thick stack of paper. It becomes a nightmare to manage the alignment of the tabs if you don't account for creep.
Which brings us to arguably the most stressful part of this entire conversation. Section 4. The creation process.
The fork in the road.
The fork in the road. Picture this. You are grieving. You are exhausted. You have a hard deadline. The funeral is in exactly 3 days. Do you go path A, the do-it-yourself route, or path B, professional service?
And this right here is where I see so many families crash and burn.
Let's walk down path A first. The DIY approach. Why do people even attempt it?
Usually it's money. Funerals are incredibly expensive. Dropping a few extra $100 on customized programs feels like a lot when you're already paying for caskets and catering.
That's completely understandable.
Or it's a control thing. It's a psychological need. I want to do this for Mom. I want to physically make it with my own hands. It's a labor of love.
But tell us about the warning label on the DIY graduated program. Because, full disclosure, I actually tried to mock one up in Microsoft Word just to see how hard it was, and I wanted to throw my laptop out the window.
It is a technical minefield. Let's just talk about the basic math for a second. In a graduated program, every single page is a different physical width.
Right.
Page 1 is 8 inches, page 2 is 8.5, page 3 is 9. Most home printers and basic software like Word are simply not designed for variable page widths in a single document.
They want everything to just be 8.5 by 11.
Exactly. So you have to set up incredibly complex margins and text boxes. If you get the margin wrong by literally 1/8 of an inch,
The tab disappeared?
the tab gets completely covered up by the page above it, or the text falls off the edge of the paper entirely. You print it, you fold it, and suddenly the O in obituary is sliced in half.
And then there's the cutting.
Oh, the cutting is the real horror story.
Because to get that clean, stepped look, the cuts have to be laser straight, right?
They have to be mathematically perfect, and most of us just have those cheap plastic sliding paper cutters at home.
The ones you use for middle school science fairs.
Exactly, where the blade gets dull after 3 slices and starts tearing the paper instead of cutting it, or worse, you're using scissors.
Oh, no.
If you use scissors, I guarantee it will look like a kindergarten craft project. It will look jagged. And because the pages are layered right on top of each other, if just one page is crooked, it visually accentuates the crookedness of all the others.
It ruins the optical illusion of the neat steps.
Completely ruins it. And let's talk about bleed. This is a technical term designers use.
Yeah, explain bleed for the layperson and why it specifically matters here.
Bleed is when the background image or color goes all the way to the absolute edge of the paper without any white border.
Right, like a glossy magazine cover.
Standard home inkjet printers generally cannot print to the edge. They have a physical limitation. They leave a white rim about 1/4 inch around the entire perimeter of the paper.
So if you have a beautiful dark blue background design, you end up with this ugly white stripe on the edge of every single tab.
It kills the design. It makes it look homemade in the bad way. To get a true bleed, professional printers print on larger paper and then cut it down to size.
Which most people definitely do not have the equipment for in their home office.
No. So they try to print it at home. They get the weird white borders. The steps don't align. The printer runs out of cyan ink halfway through copy number 50.
And you're doing all of this at 2 a.m. the night before the service.
Sitting on your living room floor crying.
That is a total recipe for a breakdown. I can literally feel the cortisol rising just talking about it.
It happens all the time. People drastically overestimate their tech skills and deeply underestimate the complexity of physical bookbinding.
So enter Pass B, the professional service. This is what platforms like the funeral program site specialize in. What is the actual value proposition here?
You are buying peace of mind, pure and simple. You are buying back that cognitive bandwidth we talked about earlier.
You just hand them the content, the text files, the JPEG photos, and they do all the horrible math.
They handle the margins, they handle the creep, they handle the bleed. They ensure the typography is perfectly consistent across every step. But it's more than just the digital file setup. It is the physical production.
Let's talk about the paper stock itself.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned substantial earlier. You definitely cannot achieve substantial with standard 20-pound copy paper.
No, absolutely not. Standard copy paper is basically see-through. If you print a dark photo on one side, you can see the ghost of it bleeding through on the other side.
It feels flimsy, like a flyer on a windshield.
Exactly. What you want is a 100-pound text weight or a sturdy cover stock. You want something that actually has snap when you turn the page.
And what about the finish? Matte versus glossy. Is there a correct answer there?
For funerals, yes. Matte or a dull coat is usually heavily preferred.
Why is that? I would think glossy looks more premium.
It's about glare. Think about church lighting. It's often very weird. You have bright spotlights on the altar, or you have harsh fluorescent tubes in the funeral home chapel.
Oh, that's true.
If you have a high-gloss page, it catches and reflects that light like a mirror. You literally have to tilt the book back and forth just to read the text.
And fingerprints, right?
And fingerprints.
Yeah.
Glossy paper shows every single smudge. Matte absorbs the light. It feels softer to the touch. It has this velvety texture that feels far more appropriate for a somber, respectful occasion.
It feels less like a pizza flyer and more like a memorial.
I love that distinction. Pizza flyer versus memorial. It is all in the tactile texture. We process value through our fingertips.
So the professional service prints it on this beautiful matte stock. They fold it, they staple it, or saddle stitch it, and they ship it to you fully ready to go.
And crucially, they trim it with an industrial hydraulic cutter. A guillotine.
So the edges are glass smooth.
Perfect parallel lines. The stepped effect is incredibly crisp. That sharpness is what makes it look sophisticated and intentional.
Okay, so we've survived the creation process. We've distributed the programs to the guests. The service happens, the tears are shed. Now we move to section 5, beyond the service. What actually happens to this physical object at 4:00 p.m. when everyone goes home?
This is the ultimate test. of the design's value.
Because we know exactly what happens to standard bifolds. You find them left sitting in the pews. You find them overflowing the trash can by the exit door.
Or they get shoved into a car console and someone's coffee gets spilled on them.
They treat it as disposable agendas. I needed this to know the song. The song is over. I don't need this piece of paper anymore.
Right. But the graduated program, the source material specifically notes that these are saved. They are archived. Because of that book-like quality we discussed, people have a massive psychological hurdle to throwing them away. You don't just throw away a book.
So where do they go?
They go into the family Bible, they go into the special keepsake drawer in the bedroom, they go onto the bookshelf alongside photo albums.
You know, I actually have a box in my closet. It has my grandmother's funeral program in it. And it's not even a graduated one, but I kept it. But I can easily imagine if it was this beautiful, thick, multi-page booklet, I might actually leave it out.
It invites revisiting. And this is the beyond the service value proposition. A graduated program functions as a mini biography. It is a physical capsule of a life.
So you might pull it down 3 years later on their birthday.
Exactly. You see the tab that clearly says photos, you flip right to it, you see the pictures of your uncle fishing on the lake, you read his favorite poem again. It triggers the memory in a way a digital file sitting on a hard drive just doesn't.
There is really something deeply primal about the paper, isn't there? We are so digital now. Our photos are floating in the cloud. Our messages are text threads. But you can't physically hold a text message to your chest.
You can't. And when you are grieving, you desperately need to hold things. You need physical weight. You need to feel the texture of the paper beneath your thumb. It grounds your nervous system.
The source also mentions a really practical aspect of this legacy: sharing the program with people who couldn't attend the actual service.
This is huge in our modern spread out families. Maybe your cousin is in the military and deployed overseas. Maybe your aunt is in a nursing home in Florida and just can't physically travel.
If you just send them a digital link to a memorial website, I mean, that's nice.
But if you mail them a thick, professionally printed, matte finish graduated program, you are mailing them the experience of the service.
Yeah.
They can open it, see the order of service, read the full text of the eulogy, see the curated photos. They can physically interact with the tribute in their own time.
It bridges the physical distance.
It makes them feel included in the grieving process. The funeral program site notes that families almost never regret ordering extra copies. They always regret ordering too few.
I wish I had 5 more to give to the grandkids.
Exactly. Because it immediately transitions from an event program to a family heirloom.
So it really has a dual role. To recap the outline here for everyone: 1, during the service, it supports participation and lowers cognitive anxiety. 2, after the service, it supports remembrance and legacy storytelling.
It perfectly balances visual storytelling with written remembrance. It is a functional tool for the moment and a treasured artifact for the future.
It's really quite beautiful when you zoom out and think about it. We started this deep dive talking about paper cuts and office staplers, and we've ended up talking about how we organize the chaos of human loss.
That is the raw power of intentional design.
So let's synthesize this. Let's bring it all home. We've covered the psychology, how those little tabs act as an external brain for grieving, overwhelmed people. We've covered the architecture, how the steps create crucial real estate for a full, unedited life story. We've covered the absolute nightmare of DIY versus the polish of professional printing.
If I had to summarize the core argument of all this material, it is this. Graduated funeral programs endure because they make space.
Make space.
They make physical space, literal paper space, for the complex details of a life. But in doing so, they make emotional space for the mourner.
Wow.
They clear the visual clutter. They remove the navigational anxiety of the service. They allow the person sitting in the pew to just be present.
They organize the grief. They take a moment that feels like the whole world is falling apart, and they put it into a tangible structure. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3.
It is form-following function in the most empathetic way possible. The step design isn't just a gimmick to look fancy or expensive. It is a subtle way to hold the hand of the guest and say, it's okay, here is where we are going together.
And whether you go the DIY route, braving the paper cutter yourself because you genuinely need that physical catharsis, or you use a professional service like the funeral program site because you need the expert support, the effort itself signals something profound.
It signals dignity. It signals to everyone in that room that this life was significant, that this person deserves more than a quickly folded piece of copy paper. They deserve a proper book. They deserve a narrative.
Here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on as you go about the rest of your day.
Mm.
We live in a world that is completely obsessed with the ephemeral.
Right.
Snapchat stories disappear in 24 hours. Tweets get buried in timelines. Emails get instantly deleted.
Everything is fleeting. Everything is temporary.
So why do we deeply crave these tactile, layered, physical objects when we say our final goodbyes? Why do we spend hundreds of dollars on paper that we know will mostly just sit on a shelf?
It's a really great question.
Perhaps the physical weight of the paper helps ground us when we feel like we are just floating away in sorrow. Perhaps we desperately need something that has defined edges, something that has clear boundaries, something that is unequivocally real in a moment that feels entirely surreal.
And something that stays. When the person is physically gone, the paper remains.
And that is absolutely worth designing for.
It absolutely is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of remembrance. It has been a real pleasure unpacking this with you.
Likewise. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Take care, everyone. We will see you on the next deep dive.